I know. Go ahead.
Hey everyone, it's Crystal from Sober Onions Podcast. I'm excited to be here. It's Saturday. I, as you know, am in an RV. So I am in a laundry room right now recording. So let's just hope nobody's bringing in their quarters and wanting to do some laundry this morning. So I am here with my friend Hilary. She is in South Carolina. Do you want to say hi, Hilary?
Hi, nice to be here. I'm so happy to be here, Crystal.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. We've been chatting, and I met Hilary through Instagram. If you have heard any of my episodes before, you'll hear me talk about how I tend to gravitate to people who I feel are very genuine in the sober community. I've seen a lot in my whole 9 months, which is, yesterday was my big 9 months, and I've seen that there's a lot of people just kind of profiting off of the whole sober movement. And when you're in recovery and when you deal with an addiction, a real addiction, it's hard to watch. It's very hard to watch. I know I'm that way, and I know a lot of people that I interview or I talk to. They're really looking for genuine people who care about the journey. And so I found your handle, as.hill.sees. So at first I was like, what is she talking about, this mountain thing, and then I realized that it's your name. But I was like, what is it? Like, how's the mountain see it? Okay. So that's just me moving from Florida to California. Now I have mountains in my life. So, but yeah, I'm excited. The biggest thing that attracted to me was your genuine passion for sobriety and the fact that you have been sober for a good amount of time and you got sober very young. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, I want to give everybody a little update about me. I did go on my Big Bear trip with my family. It was the first family trip where everyone was there but my two daughters because they were in Florida. And I had such a great time. It was just amazing to be present, to not pick any fights, like there was like a little thing there, like just normal, family stuff. We actually really get along as a family and no one in my family drinks. So that's really nice. But I was notorious for sneaking alcohol. I would buy the little minis and I would, put them in my backpack or whatever. And, as soon as I could get a drink, it was going in the drink, and I would just kind of like be enjoying myself at this, family vacation. And, I never really thought about anybody around me. I was very selfish and I didn't think about how I smelt, what was coming out of my breath. And I thought I was fooling everybody. I really did. It truly, and I think that's the addiction, when you really are addicted to something. And I can admit that now because I didn't think I had a problem. I think I had reasons and I had justifications for my drinking. I felt, well, I was a single mom and he cheated on me, and this happened, and this employee didn't show up today, so it was a mess, so therefore I am justified to drink. And I never thought about how it affected my core of people. And it really was hard for them to watch. We talked about it on this trip. It was hard for them to see me in that state, especially because they knew my potential. And it was also, something they were talking about behind my back, so to speak. Not like we're talking bad about you. It was something where they were like, this is out of hand. Should we do an intervention? And with my strong personality, I see why they didn't, but they probably should have. And I think they were thinking about it, but thank God, I got to the point where when I crashed my own truck, which I did it myself, I didn't even like go anywhere. And I literally ping ponged off walls. And I got to a mental state where I've talked about this with people who have tried to commit suicide. I have never attempted suicide, but was a point where I felt I did not need to be here. There was no purpose for me, and that my mental depression and I was crying in the shower every day. Like it was like this place where if I cried in the shower, you couldn't see my tears, or maybe the water would help the puffiness. You know, I had all these things that I was dealing with, and then I would just get out and continue to drink. So for a family trip, it was just so nice to have this peace the whole time. However, you know, I had my own personal demons where I felt like, you know, they were judging me. Like, is she gonna, you know, can she go off by herself? You know, we went to restaurants and, oh, are you okay? Is this okay? Are you affected by it? And it's like, no, I'm fine. Like those kind of things don't affect me. It's annoying, it's frustrating because here I am. I went snowboarding and I haven't been snowboarding in about 18 years. Thank God I'm actually okay at it. But I did get a fall recorded, which I posted because, man, it's a gnarly one. I hit my head so hard. But it was just amazing to be able to snowboard. But then I got down on the mountain and it's like, it's just bar. It's a bar. And people are drinking and Bloody Marys and beers and it's just everywhere. And then they're just going right back up on the mountain. And I talked to one of my family members and I said, you know, wow, like these people are drinking, you know, like this is crazy. And then they're just getting on the mountain with these little kids skiing everywhere. And it's just, it's okay. And, you know, the reality is these people don't have a problem. I do. I'm the one, you know, fantasizing about the beer at the end of the, you know, at the end of the ski trip. And my sister said, you know, I used to drink like that. You know, it was like shots go up the mountain, they come down, shots go up the mountain. And I said, well, would have been fun. You know, that's my response. Like I fantasize it like, oh my God, that would be so much fun, you know, to go snowboarding after you did shots. And she said, no, it wasn't, because I was falling all over the place. I wasn't present. I didn't enjoy myself. I spent all this money to go snowboarding because I don't know if you've gone to the mountains and skied lately. It's like triple the price since COVID, because of all the extra stuff they have to do, you know, so they can justify raising the price of everything because, you know, they need employees to do this and employees to do that. So it's super expensive. So it's like you're spending all this money and then at the end you're like, wow, what did I just do? You know? And so I thought about that and I thought, you know, you're right. Like I actually had fun and enjoyed myself. You know, I wished I was younger. I felt 42 on that mountain for sure, but it was an enjoyable time. And I thought about it in so many ways that I got to enjoy my parents. You know, we got to drive up there. I got to enjoy my sisters and brothers, my nieces and nephews. They got to know who I was as not an alcoholic. Um, and so that was just, it was the beauty of it. And I share that because I know before I went on that vacation and before I'm ready to go on my next one to Florida to see my daughter and hopefully my second daughter, is that the things that I thought about as an addict, as an alcoholic, I know people think about when they're going to go on their family vacations, like, how am I going to do this to alcohol? What if my parents irritate me? What if my brother says something that I don't like? Like my solution was always alcohol. And so now my solution is prayer, talk to my sponsor, you know, get in my Bible. Like there's just so many other solutions, but the solutions are out there, whatever works for each person. And that's so new to me. And I read this the other day about, I think it was in like Daily Reflections or something like that, but it was talking about how, you know, my life going from one extreme to the other. And I think that's the fear of what is out there for people, especially with what I want to talk to you about is being a young person and having all this fear of getting sober, of stopping drinking, because you think in your mind, what if this, what if that, what if I can't, what if I can, you know, all these things. Well, those feelings don't go away. It doesn't matter what age you are. And I was able to sort of conquer that little mountain in a sense and enjoy myself and, try to stay focused on why I was there and what I was doing. And so I really enjoy myself. So that's really enough about me. I'm getting ready to go to Florida. So that's gonna be an interesting trip because I am going sober for the first time and I'm going to be around my friends sober for the first time. I'm teaching a dance class. I teach dance. So I'm going to be doing a couple songs in one of my best friend's classes. So, and then I'm seeing my oldest daughter who I've reconnected with since I've gotten sober. And as a mother, of course, I'm going to try and see my youngest daughter and go from there. So I'm just really praying. So if you're out there, pray for me that there is some reconciliation there. And if not, just that I can just keep hope and keep strong because, I just have to keep doing what I'm doing in order for her to see that I have changed because I have changed. I am not the person I was 9 months ago. And I didn't think that I would become this person, but I did. And it somewhat comes natural, and that's where the fear comes in. So enough about me. You are in South Carolina, which is awesome. That's actually where I got my first dance certification, and it's way back when we didn't have cell phones. Yeah, I went there twice to do a dance certification at the YMCA in South Carolina. I can't remember what town it was, but I ate like collard greens for the first time and it was wow, it was good. I was from California, so it was like a long time ago. I've been teaching for a long time, but yeah, so I love South Carolina, love North Carolina. I can see myself living there one day. But you, again, I saw you on social media and I noticed that you got sober very young. I want to talk about that with you. But before we do, I want to introduce you. Tell me a little bit about you, how long you've been sober, what's new with you, how are you staying sober? So go ahead and tell me that, Hilary.
Well, it's so good to be here, first of all, and congratulations on your 9 months. It's amazing. It is amazing. And I know you're going to have an amazing time in Florida. I've seen amazing healing throughout the years I've been sober amongst families, and it's beautiful. And it's just like you said, you just keep doing it, staying in the moment, and amazing things happen when you just keep doing the next right thing. But so I'm happy to be here. But so my sobriety date is September 27th, 1992. So it was a while ago. And I was only 20 years old when I got sober. So there was a lot of, it was definitely an interesting time to get sober when you're in college. Today I married someone in recovery. We've been married almost 24 years. We have 4 kids. They're all 3 are out of the house now, and we have 1 left who's a senior in high school. So she'll be going to college in the fall. So, and I was always a stay-at-home mom, and so I'm sort of in a transition point myself with this empty nest thing, trying to figure out what's next for me. And and I just started the whole social media thing with the recovery because I am so passionate about it. So that just sort of started, and that sort of I've been spending a lot of time just talking with people and meeting people like you. I've met so many amazing people through it. So I'm sort of just in a new phase of my life, like, okay, what am I going to do next? Because it was so busy with the 4 kids, and now it's like time goes so fast, and now they're just pretty much all gone. So
it goes by so fast. I remember when people
really does.
Like told me when they were little and they come up to me and they'd say, oh, they're so cute, it's gonna go by so fast. And I would like snap at them like, what are you talking about? Like, you weren't up all night. Like, you're not changing their diapers. Like, this is hard, and then it's gone. And now I'm like, God, both of them have their own life. My daughter's getting baptized on Sunday and I have to watch it via live on the internet. It's just, everything has changed, and it's just wild. But that's amazing. So you have 4 kids, and so you've been sober, I'm trying to do the math, 29 years?
29 years, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I did. The only reason why I did the math was because my 25-year high school reunion is this year.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm like, what in the heck? So, and I was the class president, so I'm always the one that plans everything. And I'm like, how do I do this with COVID? This is weird. And I don't drink. This is
Yeah.
weird. So
Yeah.
I've got I talked to my vice president, and none of those people have problems. I'm sure there's people that I went to high school, have become addicts in some way, and I can relate to them. But I told her, I was like, how are we going to do this? Because I don't drink. And she's like, so what? And I was
Right.
like, what? No, you're supposed to have more reaction.
Yeah. You think it's a much bigger deal than it is. Most people don't care. And most people are like, great. Yeah.
They're like, great. So what? I'm like, okay, we'll do this thing.
Yeah.
So you started this As Hill Sees It. So
Yes.
you do your Instagram handle and you kind of talk about just recovery and how you did it. And that's kind of where I'm at. When you started, what was your childhood like getting to when you became an addict and how you felt? What was your self-destruction, to yourself that you felt at such a young age? I can't continue to do this, because I know that's what people are listening to. If they're young, or, I'm even young, even though I'm 42, I'm still young. There's plenty of time to stop. What is your outtake on someone being young, and where were you at that time that made you say, you know what, this isn't a good idea anymore?
Overall, my drinking was very short. I started at 14 and ended at 20. So like, compared to some people's paths, somehow I managed to cram into 6 years. It was like, there wasn't any stable time during it though. It was like, I started and went downhill from the beginning. I never socially drank. I mean, it was always to get drunk. From the first drunk, that was the goal, was to get drunk. And then from the beginning, I was never responsible about it. There was never a time where I woke up the next day and was proud of what I'd done the night before. Like, it was always irresponsible from the very beginning. And so by the time I went to college, I went out to Santa Fe, New Mexico for college. And that's where it like really spiraled. And that's where more drugs came into the picture. And, I just became a person that I hated. I was just lying, cheating, stealing, driving drunk, treating people badly. And it got so bad, in New Mexico, and that I ended up dropping out of school, moving in with a boyfriend who was, that didn't work out. And my mom finally said, Hilary, this is getting just dangerous out there. Why don't you just come home to the DC area where I grew up? And I don't know what made me decide to listen for the first time, in 20 years, but I was like, she's right. I need to get out of here. And I literally just left. I left all my stuff. I don't think I even told many people I was leaving. And I went home. And I probably, the funny thing with me is it probably wouldn't have worked out. I don't know, because I'm not God, but I don't know if it would have worked out as me getting sober as young as I did had I not gone home and my mom was sober. She had I got home and she's like, I'm in recovery now. And I was like, wow. And part of me was like, well, why? Right. Because she didn't really fit, that classic alcoholic thing. She was like a beautiful woman, worked great, marriage. Like, and I was like, well, you drink at home. Like, okay, we drank together. Like, what? And she was like, she brought me to some recovery meetings with her. I wanted to go see what they were about. And I was like, wow, I feel like really at home here, and I kept drinking, but that was always in the back of my head, because I knew when I was in college, like I was different than other college kids. Cause that was always when you're young, it's an expectation for you to party. College life, you're supposed to be nuts. And so I kind of kept saying, well, this is probably just that. But at the same time, I always knew, like, most of my friends in college weren't sitting in their dorm rooms drinking from morning till night. They weren't not participating in social events. They weren't, they weren't doing or feeling the same thing I was. So I always knew, like, mine was a little different. Mine wasn't just go out and have some fun. And then I ended up just getting sober. I finally just hit a place where I was like, I cannot live like this anymore. And I had this overwhelming It was a crazy experience, and I sound insane talking about it, but it was in right before I got sober. I was driving home from something drunk, and I got pulled over. And before that, I had managed to avoid getting pulled over. I'd avoided a DUI. I don't know how, but I lucked out. And the cop let me off, and he was like, I'll let you, I'm not going to do anything, but you need to have someone come pick you up. So while I was waiting for a friend, it was like I heard this voice clear as day. It was like, Hilary, if you don't change your way of life, like this is it, like this is the end, like it is going to get really bad from here on out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was like God was like talking to me, and I was like freaked out, because I was like, like I know people probably like, yeah, you were drunk, you're hearing things. I'm like, no, I didn't hear voices when I was drunk. And the cop didn't freak me out. The almost DUI didn't freak me out. It was this voice that I was sitting there, and I was like scared to death. I was like, I believed it. Yeah. And at that point I said, I've got to change. And I think I made it like 2 days not drinking, and then went out with friends and drank. And I remember I was like on the sidewalk. It was like 2 or 3 a.m. I was crying. And I just remember saying, God, I can't take this anymore. I need to change. I need help. I can't do it. And that was the last drink I took.
That's
and
amazing.
So, but then the work came, and then I had a period of time where I was like, maybe I don't need to get sober. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe I don't have a problem. Maybe it's just a phase. And I would actually go and talk to lots of people about this. I'd go to recovery meetings and talk about it. And then someone finally said to me, like, and this is why I'm a huge believer in like, people who don't have a drinking problem don't go all over town trying to talk to people and assess if they have a drinking problem. Like it doesn't even occur to you. I don't like Google, do I have a gambling problem? Because it wouldn't even occur to me. I don't so the amount of hours that I was spending trying to figure out, do I need to get sober, was a red flag enough that I needed to get sober,
Yeah.
So once I hit that point, was like, yes. And then I started listening to people, because I was like,
Right.
Well, that didn't happen to me, so maybe I need to be here. Then I started listening to people, and I realized, okay, these people all had really, really, really bad things happen, and they're no different than me. I just lucked out in that I hadn't gotten caught yet. And so I knew that if I continued down this path, those things all could happen to me easily. I could end up in jail. I could end up dead. I knew these things. So I started really listening to everyone who had gone before me, people who had relapsed, people who had, lost everything. And I really looked at that as a gift, because I started to see, wow, I have the ability at such a young age to really change so much of the course of my future. So that's sort of what I went through. But there was a lot of, fear involved in getting sober. Like you said, like getting sober, anyone has these fears, but getting sober when you're in college, you're like, am I ever going to have friends? Am I ever going to be able to go to a party? Can I go to a bar again? Like, and those were all fears, but they were worthless fears, because I didn't need to worry about those. I just needed to keep staying in the moment. And when I did that, my fear of being sober on my wedding day was a non-issue. I didn't even think about it on my wedding day, so it's like, it all just kind of worked out, but I had to really work on staying in the moment with it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I've thought about that. I've heard about that. People have even asked me, they're like, I've had people say like, oh, are you done yet? Like, are you done? Like, good for you. Like, you got sober, now let's go hang out. And, they'll say, well, what happens when your daughters get married? You're not going to have champagne. Or what happens when you go to Italy? You're not going to have that glass of wine. And, the beauty of it is I can say no, because of where I'm at in my journey. If you listen to episode 1, I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm just going to go through this and see what happens. And now, now that I've gotten my oldest daughter back, and, I'm my friends respect me. And there's a lot of non-alcoholic options out there. I mean, people have been doing the Martinelli apple cider for years for people who don't drink, because there's people who can't drink just because they can't drink. I remember I had a friend who said he was allergic to alcohol, and I laughed at him. I'm like, no, you're not. He's like, no, I really like am. Like, I drink it, I get hives, you know, like I'm allergic. And I was like, that would suck. Like, you know, it was like, you know, in my mind. And he's like, no, I'm just allergic. If you're allergic to peanut butter, you don't eat peanut butter, you know, like if you have a peanut allergy. He's like, so, you know, being an alcoholic, it's somewhat like an allergy in my mind, because when I drink, the reaction is total destruction.
Yeah.
You know, my hair has fallen out. I've gotten neuropathy now. You know, my diabetes is, I mean, I'm borderline diabetic because of all the wine I drank. I mean, the self-destruction I did with all of my friends and business and, you know, employers, like there's just, it was just this turning wheel of destruction. So I am allergic to alcohol. I'm literally allergic to it because I can't drink it and nothing happened.
Yeah.
And that's where the difference between me and someone else, where they have a glass of wine at dinner and they stop. Yeah. And they go drive home and they don't even think about it. And I'm over there obsessing because there's like a little bit left in the glass. And I'm like, you just paid what for that? And you're not drinking it?
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. People, it's so funny because I have a ton of friends in my life today that drink and they're just normal. Like, you know, and like they'll have one glass of wine or something with dinner. And I'm like, it just literally, I can't wrap my head around just one drink. Like, I don't even see the point. To be honest, like I don't like that's just because that was never me. That was never me. So I don't, you know, it's
definitely crazy. It's definitely. I'm glad you brought it up because, you know, like you said, you're in college. How are you going to, you know, go through college and not drink? Get married and not drink. I mean, I'm so impressed by your story already.
Well, the thing is that when I got sober, I was like, okay, I'm not coming into this sobriety thing. I was like, I'm coming in I want the happy, I want the joyous, I want the free. I don't want to hide from anything. I don't want to have to hide from alcohol my whole life. I don't want to have to, you know, be fearful of it. And that was my goal when I got sober, was like, I want to just be to a point where I'm living my life. And yes, I'm a sober person, but that doesn't change what I can do or where I can go, or, you know, and that has happened. I don't fear going places that have alcohol. I don't, when I first got sober, I definitely had to switch out some friends. I had to, because I couldn't continue to hang out with my hardest partier friends, because they didn't support me doing it, for starters. And it was just too hard. Like, that would have been a bad position. I didn't go to, you know, a bunch of bars when I was newly sober. I didn't try to hang on to my old life. And I think that is the main thing, is that it's like, what are your motives in going? You know, it's like, are you going to try to kind of relive that piece of your life? Because if that's the case, it's a kind of a problem. But if you're going because your friends invited you out for a birthday lunch, like, yes, but like, my thing is like, yes, I'm going. Of course I'm going. Like, I want to celebrate you. It's not about me and my, you know, so that was hard. But so I did have to make some changes in the beginning with where I went. The biggest thing that I did was I found other because when I got sober, there weren't like nearly the amount of young people there are today. So I found friends in recovery that were young, that were a lot like me, like that were like these like people that I would have hung out with no matter what. Like, they were, and I got to be really close with some girls who were just so much fun, and they were sober, and they were young and beautiful, and like, just, we had such a blast hanging out. And it was really at that point when I was like, yeah, I can actually like really have fun. I can laugh. I can do everything and be a better person too, and be sober and be spiritual and be, you know, and the attractiveness of the whole sober life, that's what sort of got me involved in it. Like, I was like, yeah, this is what I want. Because it was hard, you know, when I went in, there was like a lot of old people, and I just couldn't relate. I couldn't relate to all these old people that were talking about, you know, grandkids and this and that. I was like, okay, this isn't what I'm looking for. They were like, I always joke because like I went in, they were like knitting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is awful. This is so boring. You know, what am I gonna do for fun? But when I got involved, so I always suggest that if someone's young coming into recovery is to try to really hook up with other young people in recovery that have what you want, you know, that are living that life that you want.
Absolutely. And you're right about it being different. I mean, everything's different now. Like when I had my kids, we didn't have cell phones, and
I didn't. There was no cell phones when I got sober, no social media, nothing.
Yeah, nothing. And so now it's nice to be able to, the reason why I started was this podcast. The reason I started this podcast was I was so in shock. Like you said, you started your social media a year and a half ago. When I got sober and I Googled, because like you said, I had to change my Instagram handle. I had to change my Facebook. I had to change everything because otherwise all I was seeing was my friends drinking wine by the fire, going on vacation, doing shots. And they're, you know, now people, it's okay to do that. You know, the whole boomerang thing on Instagram happened, and it all started with alcohol, like cheers to the drink. Yeah. And so I was shocked that there was this whole world out there of support. And so I thought, man, I wish I would have known about this, because I felt so alone. And like people always ask me, if you had one thing to say, you know, to someone who was in your position or knew, and I'm always saying you're not alone, because I felt so alone. I felt no one understood me. I mean, it gives me goosebumps just to even talk about it, because I was at my lowest point, feeling like I am the worst human being in the world. Why, you know, I'm so low. No one's ever going to want to be around me again. And then I found all these people who were like, hey, I understand. I went through the same thing. I had this happen, and look at, we're all doing the same thing. And so that's how the podcast started, was literally my passion to help that one person like me who did not know that this stuff was alive, and that you could be sober, and you can be sober young and stay sober. And there's resources. I mean, now you can do a meeting via Zoom. You can do so many women's coaching. You know, there's women's coaching now. Like, how do I become a better person? And that's the biggest thing about this whole journey, is that I've learned to become a better person. And I love that about sobriety, is that my whole life has changed in my handle. When I wake up in the morning, my entire Instagram feed is positive stuff, things that tell me keep going, shows me a picture of someone who was in an addiction and then what they look like now. And it is so inspiring. And I did that yesterday for my 9 months. And it was such a good thing, because I was at work and I got this ding on my phone, and it was like, you have memories from 12 years ago. And I was like, oh geez, because these were the photos that we used to take and like upload to like Shutterfly, right? Or like Dropbox. And we didn't have social media, and we didn't have editing. Okay. Editing was not a thing. Like no edit. Right. And so I was like, ooh, let me look and see what these look like. Right. And I'm traveling all over the world, and there's this one like reel or like photo set, and it's on the cruise that we were going on, and we were sneaking alcohol on, because alcohol is so expensive. And these pictures, because they're snaps of pictures, no edit, so it's like every single one. And I just started crying, because it was me celebrating the fact that I had snuck in so much alcohol. There's a picture of me where I'm sitting on the couch in the room on the cruise, and I've got alcohol all around me, and I'm taking sips of Smirnoff, of all things, which is nasty, you know, and I'm taking sips, and my face is just like cringing, and I'm drunk, and I look awful. I look sad. I look my skin's not good. I am literally celebrating this drink that literally ruined that vacation. And I had all the photos to prove it. And it just broke my heart, because I was like, man, what a good reminder of, you know, where I've come from, you know, and Go ahead.
It's so funny because I don't have, I mean, like, there weren't even digital cameras like when I got sober, thank God. But there weren't, like, I'm kind of great. I'm so grateful that I feel bad for people today with all the social media, but and so I do probably somewhere have like prints, because you used to have to like take your film to get
print it.
developed, and I have some pictures, I think, like back in the day, like in college, but not even many. So I don't have like
Thank
that.
God.
Those reminders don't pop up. Any reminders that pop up are all sober reminders. So
That's
it's
great.
kind of, yeah, but it definitely is an eye opener. And when I do, just by thinking back to like where I was or the things I did or anything like that, I can remember the feelings like it was yesterday, just that feelings of feeling alone. And I think like what you said about it, it's something I say often too, is that you are not alone. And that is so much of why I started this. My Instagram page was just because I did feel so alone when I got sober. And the longer I stayed sober, the more I realized that there's a lot of people struggling that don't realize that this can affect everybody. And I feel like when I sort of became way open about what I had been through, there were people who, we had moved here from North Carolina about a year and a half ago. And there were people there that were just shocked. They were like, we had no idea. And they were like, we just thought you had like this perfect life. And we had no idea that you were sober, like that you went through all this, that you went, and I felt so good saying it, because I almost felt like it got to be sort of like I was I was being who I was, but they didn't know this huge piece of me. So it felt good. And it also sort of let people, I feel like a lot of people who have reached out to me lately, I do get a lot of young women who reach out to me, which I absolutely love, because I have a special place in my heart for young women who get sober young, because I remember it. But also moms and people like in my life situation, stay-at-home moms of kids who have these beautiful exteriors of their lives, but they're dying inside, and they don't realize they actually have a problem, like a big problem. Like, just because it's normal and everybody else does it all day long with their kids right there, that doesn't mean that it's not a problem. Like, so I feel like that's the other group that doesn't, sort of needs to hear, you're not alone in this. Like, you can still have it look like it's together and be absolutely a mess inside, and you need help. Sometimes people need help, and then there's people who don't need help. Like, not everyone, there's some people who just are normal drinkers. They're just normal.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you brought up the stay-at-home mom thing, because I think I was a stay-at-home mom for about 6.5 years when the kids were, I think they were like in 1st to 5th grade or 6th grade, because when junior high came, forget it. They didn't want me around, it was like, drop me off in the corner. Like, I don't want to be seen with you, And so, but I was very involved. I was like PTO president, all this stuff. And that was when my addictions were the worst.
Yeah.
And because I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was able to do the kids during the day, go to the school all day and volunteer. And then they took the bus, so I didn't have to drive them then. So I would drink. And then we would go on vacations, and that's when I got into Adderall. And so then I was like super skinny, had all this, energy, and, we were traveling, and I was, rock star mom, and nobody knew. Like, I was drinking and doing Adderall. And people say, oh my God, you look so great. Like, you've lost weight and all this stuff. So it would be like addicting. Like, the compliments got addicting, because here I was, like you said, on the exterior, and this was before social media. So it was all based off who you saw and what you looked like. When you walked in the door, you were that person. There was no filter. And so when I got told, oh, you look so great, and your kids, they're so smart, top of the class, and you're PTO president, it felt good. And then I would get this confidence, like, nobody knows. So I can continue to drink, and I can continue to do these, drugs, which were, Adderall, which I couldn't do cocaine because it just messed up my heart. So I did Adderall, and I loved it, because then I was super mom. you know? And then I talk to these moms and they're like, oh yeah, I was a stay-at-home mom, but that's when I was drinking the most, you know? And it's like, people don't talk about it because no one wants to admit that they have a problem or that they're doing the shameful thing while the kids are there, you
No,
know?
and
The kids know.
it's one of those things that it's really hard. It's hard to see because, like, I notice it's all around now, and it's so much more now. Like, there's such a culture that as parents we need it. We drink, we need it. It's part of how we get through it, and it does bother me so much that that's the message, because I feel like there's a lot of women that actually really could use some support and help, and probably would really benefit from removing alcohol from their lives, but they're not, because they're being told constantly that it's totally normal, you don't have a problem, this is what everybody does. And it's so, and I've talked and worked with a lot of women who their biggest fear is getting sober, losing their social scene, because it's on travel tournaments, the parents drink all the time together, and it's so normal now that you almost don't seem like you have a problem because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
But that's so unhelpful for people who actually really do have a problem, and their lives are suffering from it. And I think when you really sit around and you do listen to stories of people whose lives have been destroyed by this, it's not funny. The memes aren't funny to me because I've seen the opposite side of it. I've seen families get absolutely broken to pieces over this. I've listened to teenagers speak about how they drove drunk and killed their best friend. I mean, I've seen people lose their businesses, their everything. And so it's a really, like, the opposite side of all the joking is like a really, really, really sad thing. So the whole mommy wine thing, it really does bother me. Like, it's not something that I know that I don't try to control it. I don't, but it does make me feel like I need to speak my truth more, as just whatever I can do to help anyone who might be out there struggling with it. Say, okay, well, she's sort of like me and she's sober, so maybe I can do this. If it is all possible, like, whatever I can do to try to make people know they're not alone, then that's where I feel like I can help somewhat.
Absolutely. And my big thing too, another thing people don't realize is the health part of it. The earlier you start, the worse it is for you. And I drank for, 18 years. The last 10 years were the most drinking, but the amount of poison that I put in my body has affected me. Now I have an immune disorder. I have neuropathy. These things I didn't even think about. I was like, oh my gosh. And now that we have all this technology, there's all these studies coming out, and these doctors are saying, like, stop drinking. Like, you guys are killing yourself. Mom, stop drinking. Like, there's no Margarita Wednesday. Like, stop it. Like, you guys are doing way too much. Like, when you go to the doctors now, they ask you now, like, what gender you are. They ask you all these wacky questions, but they always put in there, how many glass, or how much do you drink? How much do you smoke? Because those have been the pillar of our destruction as a human nature, is just to destroy ourselves with these substances. And these people that go to medical school, okay, they go and they learn what's good for our body and what's not good for our body. And the number one thing is alcohol and smoking. And we are saying, okay, well, we're going to vape now because it looks better. And we're going to drink and make it acceptable so that it doesn't look like it's bad. So it's all on the surface. Everything is like, it's good. And then I'm over here going to see doctors and taking new medications because I drank and ruined my health. And that's my message to a lot of these young women, is think about that for a second. Do you want, when your kids are 20 or when you're a grandma, do you want to be on insulin? Do you want to be in a walker? Because I can barely walk right now.
It's funny because I think when you're young, you don't think anything's going to happen to you. Like, you don't think down the, if somebody had said to me when I was, 19, well, you might be, everything changes when you have kids because you want to be there for them. You want to be the healthiest person you can be for them. You don't want to lose time. You don't want to, and so that's one thing with the young people too, is that you have to realize, like, you're not invincible, that these things, there are help just on the, forget about just all of the other things that alcohol does to destroy your emotional state, your spiritual state, whatever, physically, just on the physical level, it's so bad for you. And I'm glad that more people are talking about the health effects of it now. I think that's helping, because I don't think for a while everyone was like, oh, it's actually good for you, like, or they're like, it's no problem, it's alcohol, and now at least some, like, doctors are saying, like, there's really not any safe amount. I don't think they're saying there's not really any safe amount of alcohol you can drink for women. But it's just, but it still doesn't help the fact that it's encouraged nonstop to
Yes.
be a fad. And I mean, I got an email for like a women, it was like a women and a wine and wellness. And I'm like, what does wine have to do with women's wellness? Like, what does that have to
Yes,
do with anything?
I would do that with my dance studio.
Yes.
I would do dance and a champagne brunch. And then if
But
I was promoting
it's so
something,
conflicting.
like
It's
if
so
it was,
conflicting.
yeah, I would do like an Arbonne thing. So I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna do this healthy living, but over here is some wine so we can all
And
shop.
here's some, yes, it's that's everywhere. That is everywhere. And that is definitely a hard thing about being on the other side of it and seeing that happen. And like I said, for people who don't have a problem, it's one thing. It's just that there are so many people that actually are really struggling, and they don't know how to get out of it, because that's become what they're used to now. Like, that's just become their lives. So I do feel very fortunate that I did get sober so young, because now as a mom, once I became a mom, I was so comfortable in my sobriety that I didn't care if other people were drinking or if they had a problem with me. I never felt like I needed to fit in with other, like, I've always had my water or my club soda, and like, I don't really care at all whether people care if I'm drinking or not. Like, it doesn't even bother me. So I did not have to deal with that as a parent, which was great. But had I gotten sober as a parent, I can see how that would have been a big issue, because you get so involved with the social life of your kids, your kids. And then like when they do sports, then like you have their sports families, and you get very involved with families of your kids. And I see why some people have come to me and said, I'm going to have to change my whole life if I get sober, because these are who I hang out with. And I get it. I get the fear associated with it, but it can be done. I mean, it can definitely be done. But it's not, I mean, it's not easy. No one ever said sobriety is like easy getting sober. You still go through life, but I don't think about drinking anymore at all. It doesn't occur to me. I do things every day. Like there are things that are very important to me to do every day, like keep my side of the street clean. If I mess up, which I will, I'm human. If I treat someone badly or I snap, it's important that I make amends quickly for that. It's important that I pray. I trust something greater than myself. I don't try to control the entire world. I just do what I can. And then I do everything I can, and then I let it go. I mean, there are certain things that I practice every day, but it doesn't feel like work anymore, because it's just my lifestyle now. It's just completely been ingrained in how I live my daily life now. So it's so much easier as time goes on, is what I'm trying to say, I think.
It does. And I can attest to that, because I'm so new that I remember my 30 days, like 30-day chip. And I remember thinking, how am I going to do this? Because I just want to drink all day, every day.
Yes.
And now that you've taken it away from me, I'm like the little kid with the cookie jar. Now I want it more. And, now 9 months, and I've gotten into a lifestyle routine, because I do have to change my lifestyle. In order for me to live and not die, I have to change my lifestyle. And it's really tough, because I'm in a lot of pain from my neuropathy, and I want to drink,
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've into a routine, I don't think about it. I'm not like, I don't wake up and go, oh, I want a beer to start my day, or
Right.
I need a White Claw to feel better, because I feel like crap. And now I I do things like, you know, the healthy living, and I do all this really healthy stuff, and I can feel that it's actually working because I'm not canceling it out with alcohol. You know, you're like, oh, you know, I'm doing all this good stuff, and then I go over here and cancel it out with alcohol. So there's that too. There's the perception of what people are doing because of the social media, and then they go home and they're like, wow, I really feel like crap because I've drank it a lot, even though I took a picture on my social media because I'm 25 years old and, you know, I look really beautiful and I took this photo, but at home I just drank 3 bottles of wine. I feel like crap. My finances are, you know, are dwindling because I'm using all my money to drink. And I hear that in, you know, my workplace. I work with young people, and you know, they talk about, oh, that's their everything after work. Let's go get a drink. But they're normal people. They go get a drink and they go home, and then they show up for their job. You know, I did that for a long time. I was dependable. And honestly, my demise was during COVID. So I didn't have a job to really, you know, screw up because everything closed. So, but I think the fear is the biggest thing that I can send out a message to anybody that's new and anybody that's obviously looking at you. I mean, when I saw you and I was like, oh, let me check her out. You know, she's super pretty. You know, like that's, you know, it's just a natural thing. You're like, okay, this person is really pretty, really attractive. They're, you know, the Instagram handle is very well put together. And then I read you had been like over 20 something years sober. And I was like, what? And then I was like, no wonder she looks so good. I was like, man, she hasn't destroyed herself. This is what she really looks like.
I would say on the most superficial level is what I say to some young people. It's like, if you want to age better, quit drinking. That is a huge part of it is not drinking. Really does mess with your skin. I will say that.
I look young for my age just because of genetics, but I always think like, man, what would I look like if I did not drink? I would be looking a lot better. And, you know, and the weight, you know, it's like I gained all the weight because I just drank all the time. And then when I drank, I didn't care. I would eat whatever I wanted. And then I wouldn't even remember. So it was like, I would wake up in the morning and I'm like, ugh, like I ate all that, you know, and then I'm struggling with my weight. And there's so many factors that are attached to addiction. And it's sad, and it's also hope. There's hope there, and I'm actually I'm creating and publishing a journal right now, a sobriety journal. And the reason why I did it was because I bought a journal when I got sober off Amazon. And I'm not a journaler, but I need that little extra, like something to do, some accountability to myself, because I don't like telling someone. Like, I don't want to be like checking in every day. Like, I'm okay. I have a lot of self-discipline. And I ordered it and I was doing it and I was like, clearly this person has not been to rehab, you know, or like has not been in this, because there was just stuff in there that I was like, I wish it said this, or I wish it said this. And then I stopped using it. You know, because it became a notepad. So I wanted to create something that people could get through those first couple of months, because that's when it's the hardest, and that's when people quit, because it's really hard. Like you said, you have friends that are like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to change my whole life. Yeah, you might, but anything that you do takes longevity. They tell you all the time. It's like 14 days changes a habit, 21 days, 120. Like my doctor said, I need to not eat sugar for 120 days, because that's when the sugar cells detach from your red blood cells. Like, I didn't know this stuff, you know? So even in sobriety, it takes time. You know, you have to make that change, and it takes time. And that's really hard to hear in the beginning. I can attest, it's very hard.
I think too, the something that is, I am a big person, you know, I think I just did a post about time, you know, like, and I'm a big person that, like, you can be 20 some years sober and not have it together. Like you can be just not drinking, and that's not like, you know, so there's some people who just, and that's not what I want. Like it's incredibly important to me today that my actions match my words. I don't want to get on social media and write about love and this, that, and then, you know, log out and go be mean to people at the restaurant. Like that's not acceptable for me today. It's very important. So the one thing, so I always say time itself doesn't really matter. what matters is what I'm doing in each moment. But the one thing about time in sobriety that is very helpful is that you get the chance to go through so many different firsts sober and so many different things, and you realize, oh wow, I just made it through that sober, and I'm still happy, and I made it through, and it was better than I expected, and you keep going, and the more those pile up, you just start realizing this isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be, and things always work out. Like, and you can do this, you can stay sober, it doesn't. And so that is the one thing that's nice about when I tell people, like, just hang in there. It's like, I do believe that if you just gotta hang in there, and because things don't. I had someone that I was working with, and she texted me once, and she had like a DUI behind her, and a lot of legal stuff afterwards. And she texted me one day, and she's like, I'm just so frustrated. I can't get my license back, and this, that, and the other, and all this stuff. And I said, I know it's frustrating, but when we're out there, we're like tornadoes, like running through, like just roaring through towns. And I always like think about where we lived by the beach. It's like a hurricane comes through, it's pretty quick, but like it can take years to get it back together, to rebuild. And I'm like, kind of like our lives are a little bit like that. Like when we can't expect, I've learned this through time. Like I think in the beginning I thought, well, once I get sober, sure, everyone should just hop into line and be like, oh, good, she's sober now. What I did, what she did doesn't matter. And that's not true. Like it takes time sometimes to repair relationships, to, and you just have to keep doing it and keep doing it. You can't get frustrated, but it does get better. My belief is you have to put in the work though. Like you can't just sit back and not do anything and hope it's going to get better. Like,
Absolutely.
but it does get so much better as time goes on, and things do end up working themselves out, but it's not likely to happen overnight. It takes a minute to get, we destroy a lot, we cause a lot of destruction when we're out there.
Absolutely. And to the person who, you see people, they quit, right? They're like, okay, I'm done. I'm sober. I can't live like this anymore.
Yes.
And I had a friend who texted me when I was in Big Bear, and she's like 38 days or something sober. And, she's got a young son, and he's going through some medical stuff. And, she's just stressed all the time. She's got a big job, real important job. And she just got promoted to a new job, like a better job, big job in LA. And she texted me like 8:00 at night, and she's like, it's my celebration of my new job. And like, I'm dying. She's like, I'm dying. I want to drink, and I thought about it, like, what do I tell her? Like, how do I say this? Like, why are you texting me? I'm not the one you want to text,
Right,
because
right.
I'm so new. But at the same time, God has put people in my life. And I just text her. I said, dude, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, just don't. If you have to go get like a soda water and a lime to hold something, to cheers, like just do that. Because what's going to happen is tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and you have to start all over again. And you're going to have more resents. You're going to hate yourself more. And so just don't do it. And I didn't hear back from her. And I was like, oh man, I was like, it's hard to trust sobriety. That's what I was thinking when you were just talking, was how do we trust our own sobriety? How do we trust it? Because it's like this big word, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're looking at it like, do I trust it? Do I not trust it? And it takes time to continue to do what you're doing. But I got a text in the morning from her, because I did text her in the morning, still didn't, and I couldn't handle it. I was like, not that I needed to know, but I just kind of like wanted to know she's okay, and the fact that she texted me, and I text her and I was like, morning, congratulations on your new job. And she texted me back. She's like, I didn't do it. Thank you so much for just answering me. I just needed to text someone and tell someone that I have this problem, because I cannot tell the 25 people circling around me saying, congratulations.
Right.
And she's like in her head, like, do you realize I'm 38 days sober and I am an alcoholic, and she can't say that. And I don't, I don't like bringing this into my job either. I want to go to work and I want to go home. I like to be anonymous in my workplace.
Right.
And but just a simple text, you know, if you're struggling, it's okay to reach out. You know, sometimes we might not even get an answer, but know that that person is saying, you know, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I tell
And it
myself
doesn't,
that.
it really isn't worth it. And it's, you know, the thing that I always keep in mind too, is that everyone has their own paths with, you know, whether they stay sober from the first time they try or not. And everybody needs to do what they need to do to get to the point where they say, okay, I am done. I have reached that bottom. But I do know that I am very aware that if I were to take a drink today, I'm not guaranteed that I can get sober tomorrow either, because I'm not guaranteed I'm going to live through tonight if I do it. I'm not guaranteed I'm not going to kill someone on the road. I'm not guaranteed that my life, I'm not guaranteed anything. So I know with everything I have that me drinking is going to solve literally nothing, and more likely going to bring about thousands of more problems in my life. And it is so helpful though. That's why it is so important when you, not just even when you're new, but throughout time, you know, to have other people that get you to your core level for when you do go through things. I have a very small, I have a lot of friends, but I have a very small circle of people that I personally go to that know me completely. They know everything about me, and I trust them with my total well-being. And I talk to people still when I'm in a bad spot, because just because you've been sober almost 30 years doesn't mean you don't go through stuff. You still go through stuff, and there's still firsts for me. It's my first time being an empty nester. It's a first time, you know, there's always things to go through. And my go-to isn't to drink, but it is definitely a change. So I utilize people still to this day. It's so important, I think, to have that, just people in your life that get it, that you can talk to, that you can reach out to when you're new and when you're not new.
Right. I love that about sobriety and recovery, is that the person who's 1 day, the person who's 30 days or 30 years is the same. And, you know, with being young and this world that we're in, and we talked about it earlier, was that these young people are starting their careers and their lives with DUIs already under their belt, so to speak. And it's become not acceptable, but it's become the norm. And I had an episode where the gentleman that I was interviewing had 10 DUIs and got out of it. And I got a response to that, and it was someone who was a mom who, you know, lost a child to someone with the DUI, got hit by a car and killed them. And we don't talk about that. We don't talk about, oh, they got a DUI and they killed somebody. We just talk about, oh, they lost their license and now they're court ordered to go here and they're court ordered to go there. And, you know, let's hope they don't get another one, you know? And I met people in rehab who had like 3-4 DUIs. And I was like, thank God I've never had one, but there's plenty of times I drove drunk. There's times I drove with alcohol and my kids were in the car, so I could have killed them, my own kids. And I think now, you know, one, it's not, you know, it's not funny. Like you said, I can't stand the memes or the social media. And I'm going to voice that, because I think that people need to be aware that it's not okay, because there's people out there dying from young people drinking and from it being acceptable. And I think about this, you know, if you are somebody who is young or whatever age and you drink and drive, if you put your kid or someone you cared about right in front of your car, you know, so you can see them, just put them in visualize them in front of you, and get in your car and start it and try to drive over them. You wouldn't get in your car and start the car, because you're like, well, I care about that person. I wouldn't want to hit them, you know? Well, there's somebody else who cares about that person in the road. There's somebody else who has an important kid or child. And if you kill them, I had a dance client, her and her husband got hit by a drunk driver and T-boned them. And you always hear, he walked away. The drunk driver always walks away, right? Because they have so much energy and they're loose. Because you have so much alcohol in you, your limbs are loose, your body's loose. And so when you go through this giant accident, you don't tense like you would in an accident, like a normal person who's not inebriated. And so they walk away from the situation, and you always hear that, walk away. And they don't walk away. They walk into recovery, and they've got to deal with that for the rest of their life.
It's so funny because when I think I mentioned to you, I started doing some of these podcasts myself with specific issues in mind. And one of the first people that I interviewed was a woman who that exactly happened to. And and the thing was, is she was one of those super successful people, young, happy, just doing her thing. But she started to, she had a problem, and she was driving home one night, and she ended up killing somebody on the road. And she's sober now. She's such a beautiful woman, and she's so open about her story. But like, you really got to think about that. And then I think about it, and her story struck me so hard, I think, because I was like, I used to do it all the time. I used to drive drunk all the time. And like the thought of like, what harder thing is there when you're trying to get sober than knowing your actions took a life? Like it would be so difficult. And so I don't think people realize, like, I think people even I see it every day in my own neighborhood. I see people go to this super nice restaurant and then get in their car and leave. And I'm like, you just because you have money doesn't mean you can't kill somebody on the road, doesn't mean that you're not going to jail. Like and people don't think about the consequences of it enough. And especially young people, it's like you said, it's not that if you get a DUI off of it, you've lucked out. That you've lucked out if that's all you get. If you don't kill yourself or someone else or really hurt someone, like it really is that serious though, because I've seen over and over again throughout the years, people who this has happened to, where they think that they're invincible. They think that nothing's going to happen because they're, successful. And then suddenly their lives are completely altered.
Yeah, it affects everything. It really does. And that's why I love this opportunity. I love that, I got to spend my morning with you, and I got to enjoy, your beautiful face and your beautiful aura and just your energy, and know that, what I thought about you was true, that you were passionate and real and not, fake like a lot of people out there right now, and that you've actually succeeded in this, and that you're vocal about the part that it's not easy, and that's okay, and that you're available. You have you have a great Instagram handle, and you're available, and you're reaching out to people, and that's amazing because you're changing lives. And I appreciate what you're doing. I really do. Because like I said, I come from this at a weird angle because I'm so new. And, I was that person that was, successful and had a dance studio and had all this stuff. And there's people who like had no clue that I was an alcoholic. And then there was people who were like, oh my God, finally she's in rehab, And so it's really, I deal with a lot of shame. I deal with a lot of mental issues. And these types of things, if I know they're good for me, because I'm going to walk away from this podcast and I'm going to feel great. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel like I connected with somebody who understands what I'm going through. And that's why we're here, is that person who is taking a walk or in their car, or, maybe watching YouTube, watching this on YouTube, because this is on YouTube, that they feel like, gosh, I feel the same way. And they're there, and they've been through this. And I think that's huge, because I know I need it. I struggle every day. I'm still in it. I'm like really, really in it right now. Mm-hmm. And, there's this little gap, like you see in my program that I'm in, it's like, you never see people taking 9-month chips. Like you kind of just see them taking like a 30-day, 60-day, and then you're like all alone, mm-hmm. And like 7 months comes and you're just like, what's happening? And all these things just start happening. And like, it's like you're being tempted so bad the first year. Like everyone says, like first year is the hardest year. And I'm going to say, yeah, it is, but I'm getting there. There's light at the end of the tunnel. It's getting easier. There's people like you in my life that I can look to. I can hope, I can dream and say, you know what? I know I can live like her. I know I have a friend who, maybe she's in South Carolina and I'm in California, but I don't feel alone.
Right.
And when I was drinking, I felt alone and I felt like my life was worthless and I felt like nobody cared. And I had all kinds of friends, I had tons of friends, but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I was drinking by myself.
Right.
I wasn't at a party,
Right.
I was just drinking all alone. And my kids got completely affected by it. They have stories that I don't even want to hear. But it is possible. It's possible to do this. And now that I am sober and I'm older, every day counts so much more to me. It's weird. I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's sunset. No, like the day can't be over. I haven't done enough. I haven't done enough for my day. I haven't helped enough people, And so it's really different when you get sober. You really start appreciating the day and realizing, wow, I wasted so much time. And I go through those, I wish I would have got sober sooner. I wish I would have started my Arbonne business years ago. I wish I would have started, this healthy living. I'd be 100 pounds, like it's a natural thing to do and it's okay, but I have solutions and my solution is not wine or alcohol or drugs. Like I don't do that anymore. That's not who I am. And my sponsor has me, she always tells me, she made me find a picture of myself as a little girl, and I have this picture of myself where I'm like this kid in a bowling alley and I'm wearing like 70s clothes and it's ridiculous. I've got crimped hair, the whole thing. And she's like, talk to that little girl. Talk to yourself like you would talk to that little girl. You would not, if you saw a little girl, a 10-year-old girl, you would not say, you're a failure. Yes. You suck at life, you're not a good mom. And that little girl would be like, what? Like, whoa, chill out. Like, I haven't done that much, And so I'm learning to really take it easy on myself. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for me to do. Yeah. It's very hard for me to do. And so that's why I appreciate seeing people who are genuine about recovery, especially longevity, because this is it for me. Yeah. I used all my cards. My 9 lives of getting sober is over. I will lose my family or I will die. And it sucks because I see people come in and go out and then they come back and you're like, ooh, I wish I could just like go drink for a week and then come back, and you don't know what's going to happen. I can't trust myself. So people with longevity like you, it's really important for people like me. And I hope you realized how much it impacts my life as someone who's 9 months sober and continue doing what you're doing because it's needed.
Thank you so much. And thank you for doing what you're doing, because what I have also said, some people come to me, they're like, I wish I had done this when I was 20 or whatever. And I'm like, but if we all did it when we were 20, then who's going to help the people who are 40 with kids that are coming into it? Every single person's story is essential, whether you come in at 20, 40 or 60 or 80, it doesn't matter. That's somebody else you can help that shows that they're not alone. And that's ultimately, showing they're not alone is the first step in being able to say, okay, can you, I don't need to do this by myself. I can do this. Somebody else that is in my same situation just did this. So yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I had such a great time
interviewing you. I did too, Crystal. Thank you so much.
I know. I feel like we've been talking for hours because we talked
I know.
And I'm like, we just kept going. I'm like, wait a minute, we got to record this.
I know.
But yeah, do you have anything you want to share before we close out?
No, just that I am available. Anyone can message me on my Instagram page on as.hill.sees it. It's as and then HIL.sees it. Periods. I'm sure you can find it on your page.
Yes, it'll be listed in the bio on the website. You're going to find this podcast on YouTube. It's going to be on soberonions.com. It's also going to be on Spotify. It's going to be on Apple Podcasts. And if you look into the description of the episode, you will see all the information about Hilary, about her life. We've got a little tidbit about her life, and then where you can find her on her social media platform. Perfect. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hilary. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Have a beautiful day.
And this is Sober Onions Podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring, please message me and we will get with you about ad prices. And you can find this episode on www.soberonions.com. And remember, if I can do it, we can do it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Hilary. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.